All right, we are on Zechariah 5. Did we finish John?
Yes.
We are to Worsby then? I
I
think.
believe so.
Kathy, do you remember? Did you mark anything?
We didn't get started. We just finished John.
Oh, okay, so we need to start.
Yeah. Okay, this is just a little bit of a overview, I guess, for five and 6, and then starts into 5. The previous vision ended with with the interpreting angel calling Israel's God the Lord of the whole earth in 4:14, a title that is also used in Psalm 95:7, and Isaiah 54:5. Zechariah's purpose in writing is to tell us about the future of the Jews and Jerusalem, but the future of the whole world is involved in the future of the Jews. For God called Israel to bring blessing or cursing to all nations of the earth. The prophet describes 3 key events that give evidence that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is indeed the Lord of the whole earth. Then we're starting into chapter 5.
Can I interject something here? That book that we're reading in the morning, he says the entire book of Deuteronomy is the contract or marriage covenant with Israel, which I never thought about that before either. Something you said to remind me of that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, say that again, Chrissy. The whole book of
The whole book of Deuteronomy is just like we have a marriage contract or covenant, the book of Deuteronomy is the marriage contract or covenant that God made with Israel. And
maybe
Judah.
that ought to be the next book we do. Have we done Deuteronomy?
No, we have not.
Put that on the back burner.
Okay. On the shelf up there, Lord.
Yep.
Because that's where he says, remember towards the end, if you do these things, here are the blessings. And if you don't, here are the curses.
The vision of the flying scroll and the vision of the epa focus primarily on the land of Israel. I got a footnote here, or a number 1.
Is that epa? Is that the basket? Is that what he's meaning? What is that epa?
I don't know what it's EPHAH. I don't know what that is.
Oh, ask Mr. Google.
Mine says it's a measurement.
Oh, okay.
Hebrew and EPHAA, 20 quarts or 22 liters. Well, and it was a basket for measuring grain.
Okay.
How you spell it? EPH?
EPHAH.
EPA definition. A dry measurement equivalent to a bushel.
Better make a note of that.
Yeah. EPH.
It held 5 gallons. Remember,
Oh,
I said
you read that yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
But dry measurement.
Yes.
Or a bushel, 5 gallon or a bushel.
Okay, that number 1, it says the Hebrew word Eretz, ERETZ. I don't remember reading that word.
No.
Can mean either land or earth, depending on the context. Sometimes it isn't easy to determine which is meant. In Zechariah 4:14, Eretz is obviously earth, for our God is Lord of the whole earth. The NIV translate Eretz land in 5:3 and 6.
Mine says earth.
Mine says land. while the King James and New King James use earth, meaning the whole world. I prefer the NIV translation since these visions deal especially with the sins of the Jewish nation against the law of God. Okay. See, the vision of the flying scroll and the vision of the Epa focus primarily on the land of Israel. In both of them, God performs a cleansing operation and deals with the sins of the nation. Verses 1 to 4, God removes lawlessness. The prophet saw a large open scroll 15 feet by 30 feet floating through the air with writing on both sides. On one side, he read the third commandment against taking God's name in vain, and that's in Exodus 27. And on the other side, he read the eighth commandment against stealing in verse 15. This scroll represented the law of God that brings a curse on all who disobey it, and that includes all of us.
So I think we read that yesterday too, didn't we? That it's representative of the 10 Commandments, or they thought the 10 Commandments was on it.
Yeah, we read that somewhere. Cindy might have read that.
Yeah, I think so.
Arthur.
Yeah.
The scroll represents the law of God that brings a curse on all who disobey it, and that includes all of us. And there's references to Deuteronomy and Galatians, because nobody can fully obey God's law. For that matter, the law was never given to save people, but to reveal that people need to be saved. For by the law is knowledge of sin, Romans 3:20. Out of the 10 commandments, why did the Lord select the 2 that forbid stealing and swearing falsely? Were these sins especially prevalent among the Jewish remnant at that time? It may be that many of the Jewish people were not faithful in their giving to the Lord, robbing him of tithes and offerings and then lying about it. In their business dealings, they may have cheated one another. The prophet Haggai rebuked them for putting their own interest ahead of the Lord's work. And certainly, robbing God was a grievous sin among the Jews a century later.
Haggai, did it give a verse for that?
Yeah, 1 to 11. And then after it said, certainly robbing God was a grievous sin among the Jews a century later, it has Malachi 3:7 to 15. But there is another reason. The third commandment is the central commandment on the first tablet of the law. And the eighth commandment is the central commandment on the second tablet of the law. So these 2 commandments represent the whole law. But whoever shall keep the whole law, yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. James 2:10. If I'm suspended over a chasm by a chain of 10 links, how many links have to break before I fall? If while driving down the highway, I'm pulled over by a policeman because I'm speeding, does it make any difference to him that I haven't broken the income tax laws or stolen anything from my neighbors? Obedience to one law doesn't negate disobedience to another law. To break one is to become a lawless person. God announced that the scroll of his law would visit the individual homes in the land and judge those who were deliberately disobeying God. Whether cut off means killed or expelled from the covenant community isn't made clear. Like a thief or a plague, the curse would enter the houses unannounced and bring destruction. The Jewish remnant was certainly familiar with the blessings and curses of the covenant recorded by Moses. They also knew that after Joshua had brought the people into the promised land, they gathered at Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, Gerizim, and read the blessings and curses and promised to obey the Lord. Lawlessness abounds today, and the only commandment many people worry about is Thou shalt not get caught. Ethics is something studied in the classroom, but not seriously practiced in the marketplace, and the Ten Commandments are only dusty artifacts in the Museum of Morality. No wonder Hosea wrote, they make many promises, take false oaths, and make agreements. Therefore, lawsuits spring up like poisonous weeds in a plowed field. That's from Hosea 10:4. People break God's law and then try to use man's law to protect themselves, and often they win. Ultimately, God will judge all sinners who have rebelled against his law. And that's in Jude. But he will start with Israel, the nation that gave us God's law. It's a divine principle that judgment begins with God's people. This judgment will occur before our Lord establishes his kingdom on earth, and the Holy Land will truly become holy. God will remove iniquity of the land in one day. Verses 6 to 11, God removes wickedness. Not only will individual sins and sinners be judged, but wickedness itself will be removed from the land. In this vision, wickedness is personified by a woman because the Hebrew word for wickedness is feminine. The ephah was a common measure in Israel, but no ephah would be large enough to house a person. So like a huge scroll, this was a special ephah. The woman attempted to get out of the ephah, so a heavy lead cover was put on the ephah to keep her in. A talent of lead would weigh from 75 to 100 pounds. She must have been weak if she couldn't get that off.
Wait, the lid was 75 to 100 pounds?
Yeah. A talent of lead would weigh, and lead was what they used for the lid. So it would weigh from 75 to 100 pounds.
Well, it said a talent. We don't know how many talents there were.
Well, that's true too. That's true. All right, I'll give her a break.
All right.
The prophet then saw two other women, but they had wings. With the help of the wind, they lifted up the basket and its contents, plus the heavy lid cover, and carried it in the air to Babylon. Although angels are actually sexless, and that's found in Matthew, in scripture, they are generally depicted as male. So these two women were special agents of the Lord created just for this particular task. They took the ephah and the woman to the Shinar and put the ephah on a base in a special house.
Can you give me that Matthew reference for angels are sexless?
Matthew 22:30.
Thank you.
In order to understand this vision, we must ask ourselves, what did the Jews bring to their land from Babylon when they returned after their captivity? It wasn't idolatry, for their years of exile cured them of that sin. The answer is commercialism. The Jews were people of the land when they went to Babylon, but many of the Jews born in Babylon became people of the city and successful merchants. So it was in the spirit of competitive commercialism that was represented by the woman in the ephah. For both the ephah and the talent are measures of commodities. The ancient city of Babylon is first mentioned in Genesis 10:10 as part of Nimrod's empire. Nimrod is called a mighty one in the earth and a mighty hunter, and that's in Genesis, which the NIV translates a mighty warrior, a mighty hunter. This is a picture of a conquering despot for forging himself as a kingdom at any cost and defying the Lord in the process. The famous Tower of Babel was built in Shinar. What was that Shinar? I don't remember.
Babylon.
Oh, okay. The famous Tower of Babel was built in Shinar as an attempt to exalt man and dethrone God. Throughout Scripture, Babylon symbolizes the world's enmity against God, culminating in the vivid description in Revelation 17 and 18. The contrast in the book of Revelation is between the bride, the heavenly city, and the harlot, the earthly city of Babylon. When you read Revelation 18, you see that the emphasis is on the commercial success and the vast wealth of Babylon, the very virus that some of the Jews had caught during the Babylonian exile.
You say Revelation
doesn't-
18?
Yeah.
Okay.
This doesn't imply that the people of Israel today are all guilty of bad business practices or that it's wrong for anybody to earn money by engaging in business. Both believers and unbelievers, Jews or Gentiles, can be manufacturers and merchants and faithfully do their work. But if the worldly commercial spirit infects the child of God, it will result in twisted values, confused priorities, and a craving for wealth and position that grieves the Lord. And that's found in 1 Timothy 6. The best antidote is Matthew 6:33. The two women with stork-like wings placed the ephah on the base in a special house in Babylon, which suggests that commercialism was worshipped as one of the Babylonian gods. Unfortunately, money has become a god around the world, and like a god, money is trusted by people to give them help, to solve their problems, to provide happiness, and to empower them to accomplish their goals in life. The last of the 10 commandments is, thou shalt not covet. But coveting will cause people to break the other 9 commandments. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy. Everything from lying on one's income tax to murdering a helpless victim for a few dollars. God has now cleansed the land. What is his next step in preparing his people for their promised kingdom? And then from there, it goes into chapter 6. So that would be the end of chapter 5.
I don't want to go into a big discussion about it, but did you guys see I posted Candace Owens on my Facebook last night?
I didn't get to watch it, but I saw you had it on there.
So it's going to be confusing to everybody else. You have to go check it out. But I've been watching that Cat Williams, and then there was the assistant who was Will Smith's assistant for 38 years, had come from Philly with him, and he started this all started spilling out, like they started becoming public last couple months about some things. And now there's a lawsuit filed that includes Hollywood, it includes DC, it includes all these high-end people. She just broke a podcast on it. Yeah, she does her homework. She did a podcast. So I posted just a little clip of what she was saying on my Facebook yesterday, but you may want to go listen to her podcast to stay on top of what's going on, because and as soon as I heard it, because I had been aware, because I do follow some stuff, and I thought God is starting to take down evil. I'm excited because he's moving to get some.
Now, when you say Will Smith, are you talking Will Smith, the actor?
Mm-hmm. And his wife Jada.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not none of the. Well, look at Bill Cosby. You know, you thought he was wholesome and great, and look at Weinstein. Look at Epstein. You know, it's like the sad thing is they're just wolves.
You know, I see lately a lot of things coming out, and I see some of this stuff on Facebook where there's a lot of like football players, actors, actresses that are coming out testifying for God.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I can't believe them, but sometimes it's like, are they really, or is it, you know,
And God will reveal it all.
Show?
God will reveal it all. But what I'm excited about here is it's not just us conspiracy theorist people saying that you know what I mean? Now there is an actual lawsuit with pictures, with proof, and naming names. That's exciting to me, because there's a lot of children that have been sacrificed in this whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
As Satan likes. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to say something about that while I was thinking about it, so you guys can go check it out. Chapter 5, 1 through 4. Zechariah's 6th vision was of a flying scroll, 30 feet long and 15 feet wide. The scroll is the curse that is going out all over the world, the whole land. It represents the judgment of God's wrath, symbolically covering Israel. It will enter the house of the thief and the house of the one who swears falsely, and it will stay inside his house and destroy it. In other words, the Lord's judgment is all encompassing and does not allow for any to escape. He will deal once and for all with the simple transgression of his law when the Messiah comes and establishes his kingdom. Verses 5 through 11. Zechariah then saw a seventh vision, a measuring basket with a lead cover, which represents Israel's iniquity. Inside it was a woman called Wickedness. Two other women with wings were carrying the basket to build a shrine for it in the land of Shinar. Oh, wait a minute. How did I miss that? Two other women with wings were carrying the basket to build a shrine for it in the land of Shinar, to be placed there on its pedestal. Did it say shrine?
Mine says to build a house for it.
It had wings like it's name between, and then where are they taking the basket? To the land of Shinar to build a house for it. I never see how those words are so important. AKA a shrine, which is not a house as much as it is kind of a worship center.
Mine reads it's a temple for the basket.
Oh, or a temple. I'm going to add that too. See, I didn't get that in all those readings. When God's, okay, so there on his pedestal, when God's judgment comes on the sins of Israel, then the nation's wickedness will be removed to the place of destruction. Shinar, that is Babylon, then it will be removed to the place of destruction. Shinar, that is Babylon. When God's judgment comes on the sins of Israel, then the nation's wickedness will be removed to the place of destruction. Shinar. Okay, so Shinar is where the destruction is going to happen. In the coming kingdom, ruled by the Messiah, there will be no room for wickedness. Wow, he was short. That's the end of 5.
So I don't see in my version of the Bible, of the NIV, I don't see the word Shinar.
It would be in verse 10, 11. It'll be in verse 11. He said to me, to the land of something to build a house for it.
Okay, mine just says Babylonia. So okay.
Okay, so Shinar is Babylon. Yep.
Back when we were talking about this commercialism, and the Jews learned in Babylon how to make a profit. I don't know if you all know this, but when the Jewish babies are little and the mamas rock them, they sing, buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high.
I did not know that.
I think it's a joke. Because how many times have you ever heard someone say, well, they'll Jew you down?
Yeah, it is true. People think it's discriminatory. It's like, no, when you go to Israel and you go into Old Jerusalem and you're looking in their shops, how here we pick things up and we touch it and we look at it as we're trying to decide. You don't want to touch nothing, because if you touch it, you bought it. That's their culture. And they expect you to do with them. They expect you to, like, they don't have prices on stuff. They give you a price, then you do with them and get the price down. But you don't touch it unless you're going to buy it. That's offensive.
That's what I was wondering when I was reading that, when it was talking about how the whole commercialism thing and about how money was such a big thing. And I mean, I've heard that all my life about the Jews. It's just, you talk about Jewing them down, and they're going to get what they, the top dollar for it and stuff.
It is
So
their culture. It's not discriminative. It is how they do business. It's not being ignorant towards them or anything.
Well, the new ones that go to over there, they're sunk, aren't they, when they don't know that?
That's why you want a guide. You don't want to go. I said anywhere you go. When we went to Rome, we got a guide. Like they know the culture, they know how things function. Otherwise, I would be on medication by the time I left. You know what I mean? Like, because you would like be trying to figure out like I remember when we went from Israel, we went directly from Israel to Rome, and when we were in Israel, we did not change out our money for Rome. So we get to Rome, they don't have banks. We had nowhere to go and trade out our money. We were like freaking, well, I was freaking out. All of us were freaking out except for Stan. Jeff and Kylene and me, we were freaking out. And so we had already hired like guides and stuff for the different things. And so our one guide, like they had no idea what we were talking about. It's like a moneyless society in a way. And anyway, we found this little hole in the wall. Oh, what is that exchange place? What do they call it? It's a yellow sign. Anyway, she found this little hole in the wall exchange place, but to get a decent price, we had to exchange like $2,000 to be able to get it at a decent price. Like if you don't know that stuff though, you go there with cash thinking you'll just be like America. And
Well, when I was on that first mission trip in Jamaica, there was a lumber yard or some sort of Lowe's. It would be equivalent, I guess, right down from the college where we stayed. What's that called? I forget. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
a school. So I had to get some money exchanged, and Stan made me go by no, he told me where to go. So I went down and got my money exchanged, and I came back and we were talking about it, and here they had shorted me. I guess they figured they could get away with it. So I had to go back down.
who figured out they shorted you?
Well, I guess when I was saying, well, I had this much money and this is what they gave me, they said, well, no, you didn't get enough. So what do I know? I'm an
Right.
ignorant white woman.
Why'd they send you there by yourself as a woman? Anyway,
Yeah, to make and of course he made me go back by myself to get it straightened out, because he was trying to grow me.
no,
But
he just doesn't
then-
think about stuff like that.
So I had to go in and talk to the owner or the manager, whatever, and he wanted to sit down and talk about Bill Clinton and how we do things in America and how we
You're like, I'm not a part of it.
air our dirty laundry. And I did get my money though. I said, looky here, y'all ripped me off.
He was just hoping you didn't make a big deal out of it. By the way,
Maybe.
the other thing I learned, so when Abraham had Ishmael, Ishmael?
Ishmael.
Yeah, Ishmael. Ishmael and Abraham didn't get circumcised until Ishmael was 13. But when Isaac was born, he was circumcised right away. Anyway, today, the Arab nations, they all come from Ishmael. Today, the Ishmael children do not get circumcised until they're 13. And the
Ugh.
Jewish babies at birth, or 8 days after. And another tidbit, how we in the United States screwed up, like we are not required to get circumcised because our hearts are circumcised. But they want to circumcise our babies in the hospital, like right when they're born. And then they give them the vitamin K shot because it thickens the blood. Anyway, but if they would just wait till day 8, as God instructed the Israelites, your body produces its own vitamin K for healing. But hey, let's just be our own God and do it our way. I thought that was interesting though. Can you imagine being 13
No.
and getting, but yeah.
That
There's
would
a
be
guy
pretty-
that used to work with Frank delivering sheds. He was in his 50s when he got done.
Was his for health purposes?
I think it was.
Because there really is no purpose, honestly, for it.
No.
We had a friend that he was a farmer, and he had to go to the hospital for surgery, and when they would ask what's it about it, he wouldn't talk about it because he for health issues. I don't know what it was. I'd never asked, but it was for health issues. Well, I don't know if he was diagnosed as a diabetic then, whether that had something to do, I don't know, but I know he had to have it done, and he didn't want to talk about it.
Well, that's our lesson for today. I think we'll wait and start on chapter 6 tomorrow. The vision of the 4 chariots, chapter 6. And that will conclude our reading for today if nobody else has anything they want to add out of their notes. All right.